Let's paint.
Hello and welcome to this video where I'll be showing you how I paint my dark-skinned Grimhold Exile. I've undercoated this model in Wraithbone. Now, to start with, I'm going to paint the skin, and I'm using a base coat of Cartasian flesh. I'll mix it roughly 50-50 with water. And I'm using my regiment brush for this. And just like that, I'm going to add it all over the skin. You might need two thin coats for this to cover perfectly. Just all over the skin. Now it's important that you let the first coat dry completely before you add the second one. The Cartasian flesh is now dry, and I added 2 coats to make it cover perfectly. Now it's time to add a shade, and I'm using Agrax Earth Shade. And I'm applying this all over the skin once more. Now you'll need to have plenty of time to make this dry. Give this at least 20 minutes to dry. The shade has been applied and it's about to dry right now. I just wanted to mention that if you get some paint on the other stuff, it doesn't matter, you can always clean it up with some Wraithbone before we apply the next step. The shade is now completely dry, so it's time to add a layer, and I'm using Blood Reaver flesh. Now once again I've made a roughly 50-50 mix of paint and water. So what you want to do is add it all over the skin except the recesses. This will make a very nice contrast. Just take your time and do this all over the skin. Following that step, I'm adding another layer, this time with Night Quester flesh. The paint is dry and his skin is now, well, dark. I have only one last step to add, and that is some Bugman's Glow. I'm applying this such as on his nose and on his knee, like so. Like so. And on other extreme edges that you might like. So I've ended up painting his kneecaps, his nose, his eyebrows, his toes and his knuckles, and the most extreme edges of his muscles. So now I would call the skin complete. So the next thing coming up is the hair, but first of all I am cleaning it up with some Wraithbone. To begin with, we are adding a base coat of Jokara Orange. I'm using a regiment brush for his mohawk, but when you get to the beard I would recommend switching to a small layer brush. So we're just adding this all over. Careful not to hit the places you've already painted. And with the power of video editing, the paint is now dry. Next I'm taking some Trollslayer Orange and apply it as a base coat once more. The reason I'm doing it as a base coat is that the Trollslayer Orange is pretty thin as it is. So we want to see the orange shine through. So once again apply this all over the hair and beard. And following that, I'll add a shade of Fugen Orange all over once more. The shade is now dry and we can see it has added some really nice definition. So next up is some Caribou Crimson, and this time I'm only applying it from the roots of the hair and about halfway up, like so. I'll do the same thing for the beard. Give it plenty of time to dry. I'd say around 20 minutes. Next up, I'm going to grab some Nuln oil and do the same thing. However, this time I'm only going a quarter of the way, or half the amount that you put on before. Like so. Make sure this is completely dry before we are moving on to the next step. Next up, I'll take my dry brush and add some Kindle Flame to really bring the colors together that we just painted on. I'll apply this over the hair and the beard, but be careful when you dry brush the beard because you do not want to get this on the skin. Just get some on your brush and then wipe off most of the paint on the tissue. And then dry brush. Just like so. So the paint will only catch the raised areas. And with that, I'll call the hair complete. Now I took some Wraithbone and went over the places where I've accidentally got some paint onto the miniature where it wasn't supposed to be. So now I'm ready to move on to the next step, which is to paint all the black leather. And for that I'm using Black Legion, the contrast paint. And that's things like his belt, his I don't know what's it called, the things in his beard, and his wrappings around his feet and hands, stuff like that. Just take your time and be careful when you apply this. Alright, I've applied the Black Legion, and as you can see I also applied it to the handles of the hammers. Next I'm going to take some thinned down Eshin Grey and make some highlights on the black we've just painted. Such as on the bandages. Paint this wherever you think the sunlight would hit the black. With that done, it's time to do the flames, and this time around I'm going to do some wet blending. I'm using 4 colors, all contrast paints: Iyanden Yellow, Grimhold Orange, Blood Angels Red and Black Templar. What I'm going to do, I'm first going to apply some Iyanden Yellow all over the flame. A thick coat. I'll do one flame at a time. just like that. And then I'm going to quickly clean my brush and grab some Grimhold Orange and paint it about 2/3 of the way down the flame. Ish. Just like that. Then clean your brush once more. Go back to Yen yellow and feather the paints together so we get this nice transition. I'll clean my brush once more, and then do the same with Blood Angels Red. This time only about 1/3 of the way down the flame. Now blending is usually beyond the scope of this channel, but I think this is an easy and quick way to do it. So I'll include it in this video. And always back to Yen yellow. And finally, I'm going to take some Black Templar and add it at the end of the flame. And if you wish, you can also add it to raised areas. Then with a clean brush, I'll just drag the paint onto the other wet paint. Like so. Do the same thing for the other flame. Hammer time!
Stop! Hammer time!
Okay, I'm grabbing some lead belcher and applying a base coat of it all over the hammers. Be careful not to hit the flames we just painted. Following that base coat, I'll add a shade of Nuln Oil. This will add some really nice definition. I have given the Nuln Oil plenty of time to dry, so now the hammers look very defined and, well, dark. So I want to brighten them up a little again, so I'm adding a layer of lead belcher. Just avoid the recesses. The lead belcher is dry and we are ready to highlight it, but first I'm going to paint all the gold details, and I'm using Retributor Armor. The reason I'm not highlighting the hammers right now is because I'm using the same paint for the gold and the hammers later on. So, as I said, all the golden details. I have painted on the golden details, and I used a small layer brush for the smaller details. Next we're going to shade all the gold, and I'm using a Raglan Flesh shade. Add it all over the gold and give it plenty of time to dry. I'd say around 20 minutes. The shade is dry, so now we can apply a layer of Retributor armor. Let's shine it back up, shall we? And when we are done shining it back up, we can add a highlight to both the hammers and the gold. Just avoid the recesses. And finally, it's time to add a highlight of Runefang steel. Now, when you're done with it, I recommend that you change your paint water. And usually do that when you're done with your metallic paints. So we are highlighting the gold and the hammers. And I'm done highlighting all the metal, the metallics. And I've also changed my paint water. Next is the loincloth. I also painted the knits in his belt. Next is the loincloth, and I'm using contrast paint for this one. Luxian purple, to be exact. Just apply this all over the loincloth. The contrast paint is dry, so now we have a nice looking purple already. But I want to take this further, so now I'm adding a shade of Druchii Violet. Once again, just all over. Give it plenty of time to dry. The shade is dry, and now I'm taking some Genestealer purple, thinned down with 1 part paint and 2 parts water. And I'm not adding a layer, but I'm adding a highlight. If you don't think the color is strong enough, you can always add a second or even a third coat if you want to. Now do this all over the loincloth. And with that we got some really nice definition on the loincloth. Now I'm going to finish it with a layer of Slaanesh Grey, or to be more precise, an edge highlight. I'm only taking the most extreme edges. And after that, the loincloth is complete. This Fyreslayer might look like a savage, but he is certainly into his gold and his jewelry. He got a few jewels around that I would like to paint now. He got one at the bottom of each hammer. Then he got 2 jewels inside his, what's it called? Beard braids, whatever. And yeah, that's it. I'm starting with a base coat of Runefang steel. The next step is to add a contrast paint, and you can really use whatever color you would like, green, yellow, blue, whatever. But I'm going for a Blood Angel's red. Just cover the Runefang steel and it's done. Just like other Fyreslayers, this guy has some Urgle runes burned into his body. Now, many people like to paint those in gold, but I would like to make it look like it's flaming hot, and I think that would make a nice contrast to his dark skin. So, I'm grabbing a super detailed brush and taking some corn red and base coating all the runes. Just take your time with this, there are plenty of them to go around. Now, I did say there was plenty of runes. I only count 1 on his belly, 1 on his leg, and 4 on his back. Anyways, next I'm taking some Trollslayer orange and adding a layer of it. So once again, be careful and take your time. And finally I'm going to do the exact same thing, this time with Uriel yellow. Next I'll grab a tiny amount of Ushabti bone and take my smallest brush and paint in the eyes. It was a little awkward to paint in front of the camera, so I did it off cam, but I took some Abaddon black and painted dots onto the Ushabti bone. Now we can move on to the masonry that he is leaping from. I'm taking some Stormwomen fur and adding a base coat all over. You might need several coats for this to cover perfectly. Just apply a coat, let it dry, and then apply a second or even a third one. Or a fourth, whatever you need. It took me about 3 coats and a few touch-ups to make it cover perfectly. Next I'm going to shade it all with Nuln Oil. The shade is dry and we have some really nice definition. Now it's time to add a highlight, and I'm using a dry brush of Longbeard Grey. Be careful not to hit the miniature itself. And with that, the terrain piece is highlighted. Now there is this, I believe it's called a vine, hanging down from the side of it. I added some Wraithbone to cover it back up in, Wraithbone. So now we're ready to apply a layer of Plaguebearer flesh, which is a contrast paint. And now my Fyreslayer is ready to bash in some skulls. Or, well, almost, because, well, this is a little awkward. I forgot to paint his teeth, but a little of Ushabti bone should fix that right away. Now, if you want to see how I made the base, you can always watch my separate video for that. Remember to varnish your miniature if you want to play with it. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this, then please, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It is much appreciated. Happy painting!